On the digital stage, where billions of voices converge, the question of free speech online, what it means, who decides, and where its boundaries lie, has become one of the defining issues of our time. Nowhere is this more vividly illustrated than in the contrasting approaches of the United States and the United Kingdom, especially when viewed through the lens of two emblematic leaders, Donald Trump in America and Keir Starmer in Britain. At the heart of the debate are two foundational legal philosophies, both seeking to balance the ideals of free expression with the practical need to protect users and society from harm. Facebook, as one of the world's largest social platforms, sits squarely at the intersection, its policies and practices shaped by the legal landscapes of both countries. In the United States, free speech is enshrined in the First Amendment of the Constitution. Its language is sweeping. Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech or of the press. This powerful protection means that in almost every circumstance, the government cannot censor speech, online or offline. But it also means that private actors, such as Facebook, have broad latitude to set their own standards for what can be posted, shared, or removed. The key legal tool that enables this is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, a rule that shields platforms from liability for most user-generated content and for the choices they make in moderating it. The courts have repeatedly affirmed that platforms like Facebook are not mere conduits. They are editors, curators, and arbiters of their own digital communities. Recent legal battles have only underscored this reality. When states sought to pass laws forcing platforms to host all content, so-called must-carry provisions, the Supreme Court signaled that platforms' editorial discretion is itself a form of protected speech. Efforts by the government to pressure platforms into removing certain content, often referred to as jawboning, have also faced judicial scrutiny. The principle remains clear. The government cannot coerce platforms into silencing lawful speech. Officials who use their social media accounts to block critics can even be held personally liable if they act in an official capacity. In the United States, then, the rules of the road for online speech are set primarily by private platforms, not by government edict. Facebook can deplatform a sitting president, as it did with Donald Trump after the events of January 6, 2021, and it can reinstate him on its own terms, as it did in 2023. Attempts by Trump to push back via executive orders were ultimately revoked, and the legal framework held firm. Platforms make the final call. Contrast this with the United Kingdom, where freedom of expression is protected under Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights, as applied through the Human Rights Act. But in Britain, this right is qualified, not absolute. Speech can be limited to prevent crime, protect national security, safeguard the rights and reputations of others, or protect children. The UK has long had specific criminal statutes governing online speech, such as the Communications Act's ban on grossly offensive messages and the Public Order Act's restrictions on incitement. Yet the most dramatic shift came with the passage of the Online Safety Act 2023. Under this law, platforms like Facebook are no longer passive hosts. They are regulated services with system-level duties. Ofcom, the UK's communications regulator, has the power to enforce risk assessments, mandate safety systems, require age checks, and levy fines of up to 10% of a company's global turnover for non-compliance. This regulatory model doesn't mean the British government reviews individual posts or decides what stays up or comes down. Rather, it sets out expectations for how platforms must operate. They must proactively identify and mitigate risks, especially to children. They must have systems in place to remove illegal content. And they must be able to demonstrate, through documented policies and transparent reporting, that they are meeting these obligations. Ofcom audits compliance, publishes codes of practice, and can impose serious penalties if platforms fall short. The result is a more hands-on approach to online safety, one that treats platforms as part of the national digital infrastructure, responsible for upholding public standards as well as their own. For creators and ordinary users, these differences translate into distinct experiences. In America, your primary shield is against government interference, not against Facebook's own policies. You may find Facebook's moderation unpredictable or disagree with its decisions, but unless the government steps in, your recourse is limited to appeals within the platform itself. The courts have largely supported the idea that platform curation, what is promoted, downranked, or removed, is itself a form of speech. In the UK, by contrast, you operate within a regulated environment. Facebook must comply with detailed safety codes, meaning that content near the edge of policy, borderline posts, sensitive topics, or anything that could be deemed harmful, faces higher scrutiny. Age-gated features, stricter default settings for minors, and more visible prompts to add context are all part of the landscape. Transparency is central. Platforms must publish risk assessments and safety reports, open to regulatory challenge. The stories of Trump and Starmer serve as case studies of these systems in action. Trump's suspension from Facebook was a private decision, rooted in the platform's community standards and global safety concerns. The US government could not force Facebook to reinstate him, nor could Trump compel the platform to change its rules. His attempts to influence policy ran aground on constitutional limits. In Britain, Starmer's government does not intervene in individual moderation decisions, but it does shape the broader environment through the Online Safety Act. The expectation is not that ministers will micromanage what gets posted, but that platforms will build safer products, especially for children, and respond systematically to illegal content. Zoom in on the day-to-day experience, and the differences become more concrete. An American user may encounter fewer barriers to posting controversial content, provided it doesn't violate Facebook's terms. A British user, especially a minor, may face stricter protections, more prominent warnings, and faster removal of harmful material. Content that is legal but risky, such as health misinformation or borderline political speech, may be treated more cautiously in the UK, subject to risk mitigation duties. In both countries, political speech is fiercely debated, but the terms of debate differ. In the US, it's about private platform discretion. In the UK, it's about regulatory alignment and public safety outcomes. Both systems grapple with the grey areas. Satire, parody, and legitimate debate can be misclassified. Official pressure can blur into coercion. American courts draw hard lines, aiming to prevent government overreach while allowing platforms to set their own rules. British regulators seek transparency and accountability, hoping to avoid arbitrary or ad hoc interventions. For journalists and creators, the practical advice is similar but nuanced. In the US, understand that platform policies are private rules enforced under a constitutional umbrella that protects them from state interference. In the UK, read platform policies alongside regulatory codes. Expect more friction for borderline content and anticipate robust safety systems. In both places, label synthetic media, provide context, and be careful with controversial claims. Step back, and the philosophical divide comes into focus. The American approach trusts the marketplace of ideas, mediated by private platforms with broad freedom to curate. The British approach treats platforms as digital utilities, engineered for safety as well as expression. The trade-offs are clear. The US model preserves a wide berth for lawful speech, but tolerates more inconsistency and controversy. The UK model pushes for predictability and protection, at the risk of regulatory overreach. As technology evolves, AI-generated content, algorithmic recommendations, and global reach, the debate will only intensify. The real question is not which country loves free speech more, but which system best defends both freedom and safety in a world where a single post can reach millions in seconds. Ultimately, the contrast between Trump and Starmer on Facebook is not just about personalities or politics. It's about two constitutional visions, two regulatory philosophies, and the ongoing challenge of keeping the global conversation open, vibrant, and safe for all.